Ethan Carter had built an empire from scratch. He was the kind of man newspapers called visionary, sharp mind, sharp pursuit, and a smile worth millions in boardrooms. But behind the closed doors of his penthouse, his life was far from perfect. 2 years earlier, he'd lost his wife, Laura, to a sudden illness. The loss left a hollow ache he couldn't fill. His once vibrant home had turned into a museum of memories, each corner whispering her laughter. Left with their 6-year-old son, Noah, Ethan was lost, not in business, but in parenting. He knew how to negotiate mergers, but bedtime stories, lunchbox snacks, comforting a child's nightmares, those were Laura's specialties. That's when Grace Bennett entered their lives. Grace, the nanny who changed everything. Grace wasn't like the other candidates Ethan had interviewed. She wasn't overly polished or stiff. Her clothes were modest, her brown hair often tucked in a messy bun, and her eyes carried a warmth that made even strangers feel at ease. From the moment she met Noah, he clung to her like they'd known each other forever. She listened to his rambling dinosaur facts, knelt to tie his shoes, and somehow coaxed out the shy smile he'd hidden since Laura's death. Ethan hired her on the spot. Over the next year, Grace became more than a nanny, she was the glue holding the household together. She made pancakes shaped like rockets, remembered Noah's fear of thunderstorms, and even reminded Ethan to eat on days when he drowned in work. Still, Grace kept her personal life private. She never spoke much about herself, never stayed a minute past her agreed hours, and politely declined invitations to join them on family outings. It was curious, the spark of suspicion. One evening, Ethan arrived home early from a meeting. From the living room, he overheard Noah asking Grace, "Will you be okay tonight?" Grace smiled softly, "I'll be fine, buddy. You just worry about your homework." The tone wasn't casual, it was almost weary. Something in Ethan stirred. Grace worked for him 5 days a week, yet he knew nothing about her life outside these walls. Where did she go? Did she have family? Why did she sometimes look so tired in the mornings? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. That Friday, when Grace left at her usual 6 p.m., Ethan made a decision, one he almost felt guilty about. He was going to follow her. Following Grace, Ethan slipped into his black SUV and kept a discreet distance as Grace's old hatchback wound through the city. He expected her to head toward the suburbs or maybe a cozy apartment downtown. Instead, she drove to a run-down neighborhood Ethan rarely saw, rows of aging buildings, flickering streetlights, and narrow alleys filled with graffiti. Grace parked near a crumbling brick complex, grabbed a large grocery bag from her trunk, and walked quickly inside. Ethan stayed in his car, debating whether to follow her in. Finally, curiosity won. A shocking discovery. Inside, the hallways smelled faintly of damp concrete. He trailed behind Grace, careful to stay out of sight, until she stopped at a door on the second floor. She knocked twice, and a child's voice squealed, "Aunt Grace." Ethan peered around the corner and saw her greeted by 2 small children, a girl around 8 and a boy barely 4. Their clothes were clean but worn, their faces lighting up at the sight of her. Grace entered, setting the groceries on a wobbly table. A frail woman, perhaps in her late 30s, sat on the couch. Her complexion was pale, and a scarf covered her head. Chemotherapy patient, Ethan realized instantly. "I got everything you asked for, Mary," Grace said gently. "And some extra for the kids." Mary smiled weakly. "You shouldn't spend so much on us. Your family," Grace replied firmly. End of discussion. Ethan's chest tightened. Grace wasn't living in comfort, she was supporting her sick sister and her children in a neighborhood most millionaires would avoid. The truth comes out. He stayed hidden until Grace stepped outside to throw away trash. "Grace," he called softly. She spun around, startled. "Mr. Carter, what are you?" "Following you," he admitted. "And now I feel like the worst person alive." Her eyes hardened. "You had no right." "I know," he interrupted. "But I saw you coming here, and I had to understand." Grace sighed, leaning against the wall. "It's not something I talk about. My sister, Mary, has stage 4 cancer. I work for you during the day and help her at night. Her husband left when she got sick. They have nothing, so I do what I can." Ethan's throat tightened. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it's not your problem," she said simply. "You hired me to care for Noah, not to bring my personal troubles into your life." An unlikely offer. For the first time in years, Ethan felt humbled. Here was a woman living paycheck to paycheck, carrying the weight of a family on her shoulders, and still showing up every day with a smile for his son. Grace, he said quietly, I want to help. You already do, by giving me a job. No, he insisted, not like this. You've given Noah something money can't buy. You've given me peace of mind. Let me do this for you. She hesitated, pride flickering in her eyes. I don't take charity. Then don't, he said. Think of it as gratitude. Changing lives. Over the next weeks, Ethan discreetly arranged for Mary to receive treatment at one of the best cancer centers in the state. His company's health insurance covered the cost. He also moved her and the kids into a modest but safe apartment closer to Grace's own small place. Grace tried to protest, but Ethan simply smiled. You've been my anchor. This is me making sure you don't sink. Noah, oblivious to the full details, was thrilled when Grace's niece and nephew came over for playdates. The sound of children's laughter slowly began to fill the once quiet penthouse again. Something more. As months passed, Ethan noticed a shift, not just in Grace, but in himself. He found excuses to join them at the park. He lingered longer at the breakfast table when she made pancakes. He caught himself watching her, not in a way that crossed lines, but in a way that made him realize he cared more than he should for an employee. One rainy afternoon, as Grace was packing Noah's school bag, she glanced at him and said softly, I don't know how to thank you for everything. You already have, he replied. You brought light back into this house. A Christmas to remember. That December, Ethan invited Grace's family to spend Christmas Eve at his home. Mary, looking healthier after treatment, sat by the fire while the kids decorated cookies. Noah handed Grace a small gift, a framed photo of the two of them, laughing in the park. Because you're my best friend, he told her. Grace's eyes glistened. She looked at Ethan, who simply nodded. Later that night, as the children slept and the snow fell softly outside, Ethan found her on the balcony. I was lost for a long time, he said quietly. Then you showed me there's still kindness, still hope. Grace, I don't want to imagine life without you in it. Her breath caught. Ethan, no pressure, he added with a small smile. Just think about it. Epilogue. A year later, the Carters weren't just a father and son, they were a family of 5. Mary was in remission, her children thriving. Grace had accepted Ethan's love slowly, cautiously, but fully. And Ethan, the man who once thought success was measured in profit, now knew the truth. The greatest fortune was found in the people you do anything to protect.